Meeting is being recorded. If you've got an issue with being on a recorded line, then please kindly just exit and watch the replay. I apologize. A few announcements here. There's no AI on this meeting. Please don't put your recorder into the participants. I have a few directories, and I just have to say this real quick. I have a flat fee directory, an hourly directory, a low fee advisor directory, and an advice only directory. They're on Google. People get leads from them. If you're not on these, please send me an email. Don't send me a chat. Actually, send me an email or a LinkedIn message, but I don't want to like have the chart get flooded here. But you should definitely be on them because you could get new clients from it, and it just helps the movement for us to have this kind of information out there. I get notified all the time by people with like, that are pretty good clients, that they're looking for this type of advice. It's all over the place that I'm hearing from people. Okay, so please help me help you get visibility. I have a reporter inquiry. This is the inquiry working on a piece that's designed to help people who have recently crossed the threshold to become accredited investors. Wonder if any of your advisors want to share advice for such folks. Is there a special advantage, etc.? So I, have relationships with reporters, and they come to me because they're specifically looking for the voice of this group, the voice of transparency, heavily fiduciary influenced. So if you would like to respond, again, send me an email or send me a LinkedIn. Now, another thing is that I've recently started to align a little bit with other industry groups. One of the goals that I have in my mind for myself professionally, and this is hard because, I have 4 children. For those of you that know me, I've mentioned this before, that I do have a special needs child. And that was, early in the year, that was a little bit of we had a little bit of a tough path, but thanks be to God, has somewhat resolved. And I'm focusing now a little bit more on getting 1 million followers for this movement. So it's no insignificant task. It's been a lot of outreaches, a lot of beating the bushes. I'm aligning, also trying to align with other industry groups such as NAPFA, the Bogleheads. I went to a meeting that they had. Of course, Garrett Planning Network, which is one of our very close comrades. So any ideas that anybody has about this, any way that you can help me to reach consumers? I'm trying to get more of a voice out there, because the sad fact of the matter, but not so sad because every day we're improving this, is that, by the way, I just want to say that without fail, it's like a rule that 100% of the time when I have a live webinar, there's a drill. Like, I don't know if you all can hear it, but there's like a guy drilling, and he's like right outside my door 100% of the Wednesdays that I have this webinar. Anyways, it helps us we are the transparent advisor movement, but what I don't like about this industry is that we're so siloed about it. Like, NAPFA has, and I'm not saying it's their fault or anyone's fault specifically. That's not my goal here. I do feel like there's a little bit of siloing and maybe even like territorialism, in that, these are my groups and these are my members, and I want to get away from that. Here's why. We're still less than 10% of the entire financial advisor population, which means that the public in mass is not demanding fiduciary, pure, put your best interest first kind of thing. That most advisors are still hybrid. Now, I don't want to poke at people for having a certain fee model. That's not the point. But the point is that these types of businesses do tend to be transparent, more transparent. There is something to be said for when somebody is willing to take less money and sacrifice, or take the time to be clearer and more transparent and put themselves out there like that. I'm sorry, but I do believe that these fee models do have the potential to be more transparent. Not everybody does it that way or does a great job at that. But there's the fact of the matter is the broker dealers are still kicking our butts. AXA is still in with the medical schools. When the residents are in medical school, they get called on to disability insurance. And it's not that they don't need that, but you know how the story goes, right? They're $1 million marketing budgets. I'm sick of us not being able to compete with that. I've seen people from this movement that have done an extraordinary job of getting a lot of public attention for themselves, and I want to do that. If NAPFA gets the attention, if FPA gets the attention, I don't care, because it lifts all the ships, and that's what I'm into, is that I want the teachers, the doctors, the police, the investors that are not being treated well to be treated better by our industry. And the voice of transparency, I believe, needs to be heard and magnified. So I'm trying to align a little bit anything that anybody could do to help. If you want to help me do this, that's great. Let me know. Anyways, so I'm going for 1 million. 1 million people following this movement. You think I could do it? I think I can. It's going to take me some time, but you know, if I get hell bent on something, I generally can accomplish it. Now, just to give you some information here, the next meetup is going to actually be a little bit different. It's going to be just focused on questions. I'm not having a speaker. Here's the link to sign up for the next meetup. It's going to be a talk around where I have questions that people have come to me with, such as, how do I afford my life if I'm on a flat fee model? Or questions about technology, questions about practice management. They submitted them to me. Please submit to me your questions. We're going to discuss them as a group. There's going to be no keynote speaker or featured speaker in the November meetup. We're just going to be talking around. It's going to be a mixer. We're also going to be partitioning off into small groups so that we can solidify close ties within this group of folks that are having challenges or pursuing paths similar to us in specific ways. So I would love it for all of you to come, and please submit to me the questions. The questions are what's really going to make it meaningful. Amen. Next thing is, if you would ever like to just meet with me and share your thoughts about this group, share your thoughts about the movement, share your gripes, challenges, talk to me about the type of business that you have. I always learn something every single time I talk to somebody who's under this business model. And I would love to just please scan the QR code if you'd like to meet with me. There it is. Now, here's the other thing. Immersion 2025 is coming up in 6 months. It is going to be in Kansas City. And we've got a heck of a lot of attendees so far, but we're starting to meet in our virtual pods. I know that a lot of you have expressed interest. The goal of Immersion is to share knowledge and information. Please don't feel that if you're not a pure flat fee or advice only or hourly advisor, that it's not for you. It's for anybody that believes in the values of transparency, fairness, logic, and clarity. And so having said that, I'm going to move on now to our featured speaker, who is Guy Penn. The reason I'm having Guy speak is that, first of all, I love Guy's kind of very novel and innovative approach to things. Guy is forging his own path and doing it his own way. He has a multi-advisor firm. It's an RIA firm, and he's done it in a way that's consistent with his values, and he's rewriting the model for how do you, quote unquote, I don't want to use a bad word here, how do you scale or how do you build a firm? And I love how he's doing it. The reason I think it'd be useful for all of you to hear about what he's doing is that he's building his practice in such a cool way. People are happy. It's a great culture. And I know that some of you might be wondering, do I hire that first employee? Or you might be scared of expanding and growing. And when I hear what he's doing, it makes me want to hire my first employee, which may be happening one of these days, but I'm not sure. Anyways, Guy, welcome. Thanks for being here. And I'm going to hand it over to you. So tell us about what you're doing.
Wow, Sarah, how do I follow that? I mean, that's perfect intro and good energy. And, you know, I didn't bring anything with me other than what you would, asked is, what are we doing? I've got a weird echo, by the way. Do you hear that?
Yes.
Someone's not muted.
Is that better?
I think it is. Can you just
yeah,
keep
okay.
talking?
Yeah, sorry about all that. But what Sarah, you and I had talked about, quite a few times is, what are the different ways to go about this business? And if you go back just 5 to 10 years ago, there weren't as many ways to approach this. Technology has allowed us to rethink, well, how can we do this type of business? How can we do it? And the word scale, I don't use the word scale a whole lot because that implies growth for the sake of growth. But I think maximizing efficiency so that we could benefit from each other's presence. So it's still all about the presence of others and appreciating others. To give you a little background, I went full solo RIA back in 2010. And for those of you who might have done it around the same time, the industry had this word for us, like rogue breakaways. It was like, we're doomed to fail. We have no resources. And how can we be trusted? We're like individuals, with custody and all this other stuff. Granted, there was no good tech around it. There was like Orion and a few really expensive things, and there were some TAMPs. But I just kind of went and built one client at a time. Very much a lifestyle practice, nothing glamorous. My practice would have gotten me fired from Merrill Lynch. It was just a lifestyle practice in the Midwest. It was something I was really proud of. Doing that day in and day out for years, you do get the sense of blinders. Some of you who might be solo may have, felt that or understand where I'm coming from. And around 2019, end of 2019, early 2020, I really just started opening up to collaborating with friends. And it started with just collaboration. Then it morphed into a couple of friends saying, hey, can we just do this together? I had been working from home for like a decade. The systems were already locked down pretty well. COVID happened, everyone went remote. A lot of firms were scrambling to figure out how to do remote. I had just been doing it the whole time. And it just started evolving from not so much a partnership as much as a community style RIA. We think of it in terms of a completely horizontal group of equals who can share ideas. We can share we can share an RIA, we can share an ADV, and that allows us to really brainstorm on client specific things. But we keep this extremely horizontal. It doesn't matter the size of anyone's practice, the way that they can bring ideas to the table. And we operate under the lens of, and we talk about transparency, and it's funny because we had this, I spent 2020, like a lot of us, just buried in trying to build something, and I wasn't going out. And so we made this field guide, which is our complete culture code, our process, our technology, like everything about us. And I let advisors take a look at this to say, hey, would we be a good community for us to work together? And I remember laughing. I had this attorney who goes, Guy, you really need to have an NDA with this thing. You put so much, work into this. I'm like, I'm gonna put it on the internet. So I just put it on the internet. And he was really upset with me. But the reality is there's no secrets anywhere. So if we're talking transparency on a business model, if another firm just stole what I did, the profession gets better. And if they took what we did, we're already doing the next iteration of it anyway. They'll forever be behind on what we're trying to accomplish anyway. So it's okay just to put it out there. That has helped us culturally more than anything else. When you can put your whole self out there and your culture code and your values, you're allowing yourself to show who you really are. So there's no secrets. If someone wants to self-select out, we are not for everybody. We're for like a very few amount, few group of people. So it's to allow others to really see that. It saves us a lot of time and weird conversations with people who aren't right for us. And the analogy we tend to use for ourselves is this big artist and farmers market where everyone has their own tent and their booth and their craft and they're building what they're proud of, but we can share a parking lot. And if I could say the one thing that we're proud of most is to strip away any ego of what a firm is. A firm is just a piece of paper. It's the thing, files paperwork. It's the thing that takes on risk. But the only thing that's a business is the advisor and the practice. And if we all agree to that, it strips away this ego of like the firm is just a parking lot. It's blacktop. It's nothing more. We hang out on it. We share energy. We share ideas. It files paperwork, but we can just be ourselves. And there's nothing more glamorous. So sorry, I don't have anything more fancy or glamorous, but that's the 5-minute version of it.
Inspiring. I mean, are people having trouble hearing me?
I hear you well.
Oh, okay, thanks. Guy, I find this to be so inspiring, and I love the story about you sticking it to your attorney. And then he says, I want you to sign an NDA, and you say, I'm going to put it on the internet. So that is just wonderful. So I just want to hear from the group. Guy, thank you so much for saying everything. And thank you for doing it. Thank you for being this voice. Okay. I hope you all heard that. Group, what do we think about what Guy just said? Can somebody ask a question or make a comment, please?
Can you clarify? You have created this sort of structure, but I'm not sure I quite followed exactly what that structure is. I mean, I'm getting there's a bunch of collaboration, but is it anything more than just like a study group? There's some formal affiliation? I wasn't quite sure I followed that.
No, yeah, it's the perfect question. We are technically, on paper, a roll-up RIA. Each of us, myself included, is an IAR. each of us, myself included, just gets a 1099 because I still have my own practice. I have my clients. That's what pays my bills. And we're sharing everything else. From a community perspective, because we're registered together, we think of ourselves as a team. So we share, in our group chats, client scenarios, case studies. So and so knows, hey, this person is really good at small business tax. Can I borrow you for 30 minutes? We all have this idea of true generosity because we're going to need it sometime. And if we're generous with others, it comes back to us. And there's not this notion of, well, that's not my client, or hey, we'll split revenue because I'm helping you. It works better if we agree that we're a team, but it's kind of breaking down the silos where the silos don't need to be. We still need silos. Like, people should only see their own client data. Like, that's the safer approach. But we shouldn't be siloed on how we think of ourselves as wanting each other to succeed.
That's a cool structure. So it's a lot of supporting each other, collaboration, sharing ideas, learning, etc. And then how about, I'm just curious about the business structure. Are you sharing some overhead expenses, collaborate, sort of pooling money for technology and compliance and things like that?
That's how we run it. Is we centralize everything that needs to be centralized from a compliance standpoint, so that we can archive, we can oversee. We cover the cost of everything other than two pieces. The planning software, we like to get our own because it's client facing. You might like Right Capital, someone else might like Asset Map, that shouldn't matter. And then the CRM, we get Wealthbox for a huge discount, but not everybody needs that. There are other solutions. So we're kind of agnostic, but we like Wealthbox.
Very cool.
Yeah. Hey, guys, Chris Acker out in California. I have a question.
Yeah.
So let's say, you're working with a client and then you decide to go on vacation. You just had mentioned that you don't share client data, but if you go away, you're out of the office, you have a client emergency, one of your colleagues needs to help this person. How do they access the data? Or does the client give it to them, or do you allow it? How do you do that?
That's a great question. The way we handle that approach, anyone who's on a central CRM, like a Wealthbox, we have that as a central function, and user access can be moved around. So in a situation like, let's just pretend I'm going to go on a cruise and I may or may not have access to any, capability to be connected. What I'll do in that scenario is I'll find another advisor on the team who's okay covering me, and just say, hey, for this, these dates, can I route my email to you and my phone to you, and then flip CRM access over to you if both parties agree to that. So being centrally, registered, our privacy policy allows for this type of sharing. And then we can turn off that access when someone gets back. But that way someone could say, client calls, it's Mrs. Smith, there's always a Mrs. Smith. The advisor who's covering can say, oh, here, I saw you last spoke, to your advisor here. Can I help you with something? Or can I wait till they get back? But rarely, in our profession, there's rarely emergencies. Someone needs cash for, something. A few times in my career, someone needed cash that week.
I'm thinking somebody, if there's a death, and we've had that happen. So yeah, thank you.
That's a real good point.
Everybody, Guy is so modest that he didn't say the name of his company, but the firm it's called Core Planning, and the link is actually in the chat. Guy, how many advisors do you have in this community?
There's a few dozen of us right now. So we're a very small firm. Most of the advisors here are growing or in the growing phase. A few have their buses full, the quote unquote full bus. And there's some who've been doing this 20 years, and there's some who are studying for their 65 right now. It's that energy of different ideas flowing, which makes it fun. But what's fun for me, and I'm hoping this is useful for this group, is I get to see all these different business models. I get to see new ideas. Every advisor kind of has their own model from within this framework of guardrails. But there's a lot of people here who are just full out advice only, flat fee. We're not doing a lot of hourly because we're state by state. Different states have different, attitudes on that. We have AUM advisors, and we're happy with all models as long as they're transparent, fee only, client knows what they're paying. That's the big one.
Hey Guy, I'm Ian Hunter out in Dallas. I missed it whether you said you've hired any admin staff or had you thought about that?
That's something we would love to get to. Right now, with the way processes are in technology, we don't really have a need for admin at this point. Because if we think of, for those advisors who are doing, investment management, we're using altruist predominantly, phenomenally efficient. When it comes to like the operational workload, so compliance is like the huge one, we outsource that instead of doing it in-house, because an outsourcing, compliance firm, they're always up to date with what needs to be done and efficient. What our vision is, what we would like to accomplish is, as more of us here have buses full, to have up and coming, advisors kind of take over paraplanning work if need be. It could be like packaged hourly or things like that. Those are fun problems to solve for, but we haven't had to solve for that yet.
Hi, it's Maura in Seattle, and I was wondering how you, with all your different models, your registration, does that mean you're registered with the state? Are you over the limit where you have to register with the SEC? Like, I'm curious how that all works.
We've been adding states this whole time, which gets oppressive, but we are working toward our SEC. We're at our 15 at this point. So we're in the process of that right now, which is fun, exciting, and a lot of paperwork, but that's a great question. When we get to that point, hopefully in the next couple months is, an ideal time frame. That does simplify things a lot, because if you keep adding state by state, you keep having to know which state's rules, allow for what. And when we think of our ADV, we have our pricing model guardrails so wide so that an advisor can operate from within that. As long as an advisor isn't charging more than our ADV, they can always charge less. I hope that helps answer.
Guy, have you made a conscious effort to get advisors to join you? I mean, you said the first few advisors that joined were kind of friends and it was mutual, but since then, how has the growth happened?
Almost all word of mouth. In the very beginning, I put a couple LinkedIn posts out on the job boards, and it wasn't like a job, because I recognize this isn't a job scenario. It's a, hey, do you want to come join up? That was kind of a bust, in my opinion, that we got a lot of people reaching out, but it's really hard to sift through who really wants what and if they're the same kind of on our wavelength. So that was a stressful time, because I was on the phone, 5 to 10 calls a week, where maybe one advisor might have been kind of our people, so to speak. And you can kind of tell, what their first waves of questions are. Like, well, what's the payout? The first, questions you can tell, or do you support a hybrid? We do not support a hybrid or a BD affiliation. We have to be strictly RIA. So that's when the field guide has helped. We went really radical with our language on the field guide to help weed out, people who wouldn't be the best fit. So that has helped. And in the past year, really, we're just kind of posting, our thoughts on LinkedIn and in a few places, but we're not actively saying, hey, come join us. But sometimes I'll put something fun on the internet, and it sparks a little bit of interest. But it's predominantly people already here just telling their friends.
Hey, Guy, Scott Solaski. I might have missed it because I came in late. So if you already discussed this, please forgive me. Quick question. Does each advisor that's part of your group have any independent registrations with states or SEC, or does it all fall under core planning?
It's all under the singular entity.
Okay.
To do that would be like a sub-advisory agreement,
Right.
which that adds a layer of complexity we're probably not ready to handle yet. That's probably the short answer.
Okay. Great,
But
thanks.
everyone here can do their own branding and their own, LLC, so to speak. So, it's the standard model of, and this is actually something that surprised me. In the beginning, I'm thinking everyone have their own brand, but only a few really wanted to. Several advisors like, oh, I like the core brand, I'll run with it. Some have their own domains and websites, and it's beautiful. And there's some advisors that are part of that you probably have seen online. They're yeah, their web presence is amazing. So it's open-ended. Kind of long, yeah, long answer there. I apologize.
No, that's okay. Thanks a lot.
Hi, Guy. This is Ed. I'm in Alabama. You know, a lot of RAs, we outsource back office things to TAMPs. And I'm curious if any of your members, or however you describe yourselves, do that, or is all that brought in-house some way? Just curious how that's addressed.
TAMPs have worked for years, and it's a great question. And there's not like a yes or no answer to whether TAMPs are worth it or not for the price. A lot of TAMPs are basis point, type scenarios. So much of what they were good for is getting access to custodians because they had scale to get access to things that we don't really need so much anymore. For advisors who are managing investments, we're predominantly using Altruist, which functions as a TAMP. Realistically, it does the rebalancing, it does trade execution, it does the fraction, all the things that you would want from a TAMP. And because the account opening process is so lightning fast and digital, the benefits of a TAMP start to go down. And by also building our own in-house kind of operations center, we're really big in this app ecosystem philosophy, meaning we want the best trade execution, we want the best digital intake, we want the best linking of forms, that if something else comes better a year from now, which it will, we can plug it in and plug something out, and it's not disruptive to the business. So we use an application vault where everything that's client facing is in there, and you just launch what you need. So operationally, it's pretty simple. So, and that was a long-winded kind of answer to the benefits of a TAMP have kind of gone down over the years, in our opinion, for the cost that some of them can be.
Hey guys, Skip Fleming in Colorado Springs, Colorado, out here in the sunshine. Your model is very similar to the RIA I belong to, CGN Advisors out of Manhattan, Kansas. It was originally started by Cheryl Garrett, who was Garrett Investment Advisors. Very, very similar. We each have our own DBA, but we're part of the RIA. We have our own compliance manual, and the back office does all our billing. We have access to, through Orion, to a platform to get our investments on if we choose to do AUM. A lot of us don't. A lot of us are strictly hourly. So it's a very similar model, but just think from a collaboration standpoint as an owner, as you are, you might reach out to Justin Nichols at CGN Advisors, and because you guys are very similarly configured.
I'm grateful for that, because I can learn so much from people who've done it before.
Yeah.
And like you said, what we're doing structurally is not unique. There are RIA aggregators all over. So structurally, that playbook has been out there. What we're trying to do a little bit different is make it community first, where every advisor truly feels connected to as a team member to the others.
Yeah.
And to be small on purpose. So this is something that is unique to us that we're really proud of, in the sense of we actually cap the amount an advisor can even contribute to the group. And that was something we started a couple of years ago to do two things. We wanted to prove that we're not building a profit center. We're building a place where we can, be profitable to operate. And there's a difference between those. We also wanted to build this community to where, if you think of this hypothetical, firm that has like a few rainmakers that are just bringing in a ton of revenue, they tend to have more influence over the direction of that group. By capping the amount that an advisor contributes back, we eliminate, quite a bit reduce the ability for any large practice to have sway over the direction of things. So those are the two things we kind of hold dear, which means we tend to appeal to the lifestyle practice. The $400 million, practice they'll just build their own RA. They wouldn't, function well under us because of our artist market philosophy. Walgreens in the corner of it just wouldn't fit in, So we're gonna maintain that lifestyle advisor approach.
The other comment I have for you is, if you're looking to outsource, particularly admin support and paraplanning support, there's somebody on the call here right now, Sue Chesney out of up in the Denver area. She does a fantastic job on outsourcing those things on an individual or firm by firm basis. So she's on the call, so you might want to reach out to her too.
Very cool. I'm always open to that.
Thanks, Skip.
These are great questions, by the way. Sarah, you bring together some good people. This is fun.
Hey, man, this is fun. I'm really enjoying this discussion here. I hope everybody else is. Are y'all enjoying the discussion? What questions does the group have? Eileen, I see you're unmuted. Oh, a bunch of
I
people.
go back and forth on whether or not I'm going to ask these questions. So Guy and everyone, I really, really enjoy these calls, and I love seeing the different visions we all have and are a part of. So I know it might not be fair to ask you this specifically, but is anyone doing something similar purely with the advice only without there being an attachment of the AUM? Because I know there's still so many consumers that are just looking for the advice only. And when they see the ADV with the investment piece also, it's not there. So again, kudos to you for everything you're doing. And, you know, as Skip mentioned, you know, there was a spinoff of a group within Garrett that also did that other piece that's separate from the Garrett network. But I'm continually looking for who is taking those steps on the advice only to do exactly what you're doing. And again, kudos to you for how you built it, how you did it, the breakaway side from the broker dealer. That's all part of my background too. So I love seeing all the different steps people are taking. And again, it's not for you personally to answer that, but just something I wanted to ask the group, since the group also brings in all of these other interests. So just something that I'd still love to know if anyone has that direct for no assets under management, purely advice only in this exact same business model. So again, kudos for you for all of that you've done.
I appreciate that. I'd love to know too. I don't know off the top of my head, but we can all learn from each other. And that's something, Sarah, you alluded to this in the very beginning of this conversation. We're massively outnumbered, all of us, like just massively outnumbered. We should be helping each other with all these things. What all of us are doing can be shared, can be replicated. There's no like magic thing about it. And you're right. Consumers are asking all these right questions. What we're doing is we're building a place where advice only advisors, and it's probably more than half of us are advice only. That's why we aren't racking up AUM, but having a place for people to collaborate with unique visions, but a similar like core set of values.
Guy, I'm curious when you talk about collaborating and doing a case study on one of the clients in the group. Do you guys have a set way of doing that? Like, do you meet Monday mornings to bring your case study to do a triage on a particular situation, or how does that addressed and dealt with in any type of an efficient way, or just as it comes up, or how does that go?
When it comes to efficiency, I'm a big fan of asynchronous through Slack chat rooms. When we're asynchronous, it allows people's thoughts to unfold whenever they're able to have those unfold. So we're real big into Slack. We have our chat rooms, and each channel has a different theme. It could be investing, financial planning. We have a success channel to where we just celebrate each other. And these are thriving and beeping all day. That allows conversations to evolve where more people can have access to learning. When you have a really good question and it's in an asynchronous chat format, now 10 people can realize, hey, I never thought to ask that question. Now 10 people can learn, or 20 people can learn. We also have about once a week these group huddles, kind of like this, to where they could be themed like, hey, we're going to get to next Thursday, we're talking elder care planning. Or next Wednesday, we're having a huddle and there's no theme. We just want to share thoughts, ideas, what's working, what's not working. What did we mess up on? What can we do better? So we have unstructured hangouts, structured ones, but 90% is asynchronous. And that allows more people to interact on their schedule.
Guy, have you ever had challenges? What challenges have you had? And two, have you ever had someone come in and it didn't quite work out?
Oh, yeah.
For everybody.
The biggest challenge, and they're kind of one and the same, where really setting the expectation that, with what we're doing, like almost probably everyone here, we have to build our own practice. And it is really hard. It's really, really hard to go from wherever you are to where you want to be through your own efforts of building a practice. And I've always tried my best to say this is not easy. This is not an easy path. And I don't want to sugarcoat building a practice. So, we've had a few advisors leave over the course of the past few years, mostly, and it wasn't a personality thing or anything wrong. They just needed to to get the salary position somewhere. And I respect that. And, they're always welcome to part ways. But that's the challenge, is setting the expectation with, if an advisor comes over here without a practice, which they're welcome to, telling them it's a long, hard road. We're here for you. We're going to make it as easy as we can, but we don't have a central lead funnel. Each of us is building our own. So just having that expectation and really making sure we're able to help someone through like that 18-month period. It's like the first 6 months is exciting, and you've got, clients that you're building with and moving over. And then there's this 18-month or 2-year window of like, okay, where are the next clients going to come from? This is so hard and emotionally draining. That's the phase that we really want to stick together and celebrate each other and try to help through emotionally to get through that proverbial 3-year window of building to where, okay, I'm paying my bills. This is a business now. And I remember that feeling when I broke away, back in, I guess, 2010. And I just had a couple clients, but I'm like, what did I do? And it was scary.
Do you feel it's helped the advisors grow to know that there's somebody right there on Slack, that if they have that meeting that doesn't go well, or if they're just not coming up with new clients, or they lose a client, it was kind of tough. Do you think that has made a significant difference? Or do you think the advantage of this kind of a community RIA is more just in the operational efficiencies of it?
It can't just be operational, because we can get operations from anywhere. The true benefit of a community is actually emotionally helping someone through these feelings. That is what we want this to be, is a group of people who do care about each other. And I still believe that you can have a deep connection with someone and not sit in the same room, but do it digitally, care about how they're making this work, share things that haven't worked for us, or say, hey, this newsletter really hit. You're welcome to it. Here it is. It's in our share drive. To say, here, we can truly put things out there to make it a little bit easier for each other, because it's a hard business. Even for people who are online just killing it, most of us aren't. Most of us are just here working and trying every day.
I also think it's a good mental pattern to be in. It's a good mindset to be in, the spirit of generosity, that when you are constantly nurturing other people, you're constantly giving to other people, that cannot help but to translate into how you treat your clients, how you treat your prospects, how you present yourself online, all of these things. So
You're absolutely right. Yeah, there's this inner world, and then there's the outer world. The outer world is on social media, and we're doing our best to present to our clients. And then there's this inner world of, my God, what did I do? And I have to keep going, because now let's say I have my first 10 clients. So I have to keep going because I need to make sure I'm there for them. I made these clients a promise that I would make this work. And to show each other that vulnerability, it helps, because sometimes people leave this profession that should not have left the profession, that they're good, high integrity advisors that need to be here, but they might have run into that 2-year mark of, okay, now what do I do? This is really tricky. Sometimes there's this feeling of, I'm the only one going through this, but we're not. None of us are the only ones going through this. There's a lot of us that have gone through it. And it's okay to say, here's what it felt like at the time. That's normal. And if you keep going and just add a client a month, or even 2 clients a year, mathematically, you will get to this point where you're sustaining revenue. It's an inevitability if you just keep going and find out what has been working. So it's an emotional support system and emotional cheerleading that matters most to us.
Hey Guy, it's Maura again, and I have
Mhm.
two separate questions, so answer whichever you want, whatever order you want. First, I'm wondering about finances. Like, how do you do that? Are you all like divvying it up amongst the number of people? Is it a portion of revenue? I know you said there's a cap,
Mhm.
so forth. And then my other question is, how do you do this? You said it's very lateral. So how do you do decision making at the group level if, like at the firm level, if there is nobody in charge? Is it all just voting or so on?
Those are great questions. So from just a financial standpoint, we make the math very simple for ourselves. We just started an 80% payout, and then we cap that at 20,000 of an advisor contribution back. So it just basic math at 100,000 gross revenue, the advisors takes home everything after that for the year. That allows us to do a couple things. It allows us to, each run our practice at a more profitable level than being totally solo and having compliance covered for ourselves. It also allows us this room to grow. So because we're not charging a fee for an advisor to come over, they can grow and have a better chance of making it if they're getting a higher payout without any fee to join. So it's this hybrid. We think of billing clients a lot of times, as a flat fee structure. At a certain point, this becomes a flat fee structure for ourselves. But it's not that big expense up front if someone has their first 10 clients. So that's where we think of this kind of generosity mindset with how we pay ourselves. The second part around decision making, we have this notion of everyone needs to throw ideas out into what we call our innovation center. So we have it's basically just a board and a form, and people put in all their ideas and, hey, wouldn't it be great if we had this? Then it goes into a public board and everyone can kind of see what's being worked on and built and jump in to help. Ultimately, the decision that's firm wide, I still have the CCO kind of role. So I still have to be the final decision maker on like mission critical things like, do we add another custodian? Like if we, those are the kind of things that I still have to manage and, and make decisions on, knowing that it benefits the group if we're all giving equal feedback though. This is a great question, by the way. And sorry if I was like, I kind of ramble on these answers, but I have fun with it.
I am coming unmuted and I posted it. That's a phenomenal structure. I was going to ask a similar question because I was really curious, but to hear how you've described it and to give the starter earlier person the opportunity to have their own full ownership and keep that level of profitability, fantastic. I really, really like finally hearing something like that is out there. So again, congratulations for setting it up that way.
I appreciate that. It's our way of just trying to show that we don't have to run an RIA as a profit center. An advisor can be very profitable. An advisor's practice could be as big as they want because that's the business. That's what matters. The support structure, it forces us to keep it simple though. So it forces us to not buy campus buildings and stadium suites and all these things that firms have that clients end up paying for that no one needs.
Guy, this is Ed Kearns again.
Mhm.
Is succession planning discussed in your field guide? That seems to be a very attractive thing, for solo practitioners to need to deal with that. I'm just curious how that is incorporated into your model.
Succession planning is a huge factor. It's something we want, and we're planning on building out a little bit more structure around it in the sense of how do we value an internal practice? And what happens if something happens to me? I have 4 kids, and then I have a practice. That is something we are building right now together. So I don't have a very specific answer other than when we're all in here, there are methods at which an advisor could team up with another advisor. Let's say someone has a full bus or they're maybe in their last 10 years or thinking 10, 15 years out. Then it could be structured as like a revenue share for a period of time to give a younger advisor a better chance and not having to go into debt to finance, a practice. It could be saying these 10 clients are perfect for this advisor. Would they like to purchase these 10 clients? So we can align clients with advisor type or advisor personality is another option. So these are all things that we're working on right now. I don't have a concrete answer, but we're working to solve that. And it's a fun problem to solve because I want to solve it personally. I knew that when I was completely solo, I'd always thought about that. Right now, just personally, the way I do it right now is I have the succession plan that the other advisor will just get the controls of my clients. And I have an insurance policy to pay my family for that and not to worry about the rest. But that's just my personal approach to kind of band-aid it for myself right now.
That's a huge issue in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's especially a huge issue for example, flat fee practices where, you know, they all say like the bankers won't talk to me. Nobody wants to talk to me about buying my business or trying to sell my business.
That's a huge issue. And you brought up flat fee as succession too. And I'm sorry if I interrupted. We're talking about that with an advisor here who she's doing great and she is flat fee and she's making good money. But all these banks like to value how much assets you have. Okay, here's a number based upon this. But her clients love her and they love the model. How could we come together to solve that? I don't have an answer for that, but I do know that there's enough of us here who care about it that we can collaborate and work on something that works for everybody.
I think that's going to be a different answer in 5 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's just me being optimistic, but I mean, the growth of the flat fee model, and not even advisors that are just going purely flat fee, but so many, I look at ADVs all day. All right. Because I talk to a lot of financial advisors. And before I talk to anybody, by the way, I do read their ADV. But it's just, I always see that box checked now. More often than not, when I look at an RIA firm, an IAR, when I look at them, it says AUM, and it says on their website, like we do AUM, but then also flat fee for either planning, or we'll charge flat fee if you want to work flat fee. Like it's just more and more common. I'm seeing that box checked more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really think, sorry, this is just me being opinionated here, but I do think that it's just going to be inevitable that things are going to have to change, because with so many practices operating this way, I think there's going to be a lot more options. But maybe I'm just being overly optimistic.
No, I think your optimism is what we need to keep going forward. You know, if we're not optimistic about it, we give up on it. So I love it.
Question in the chat here. How many folks are in your group, and how many folks are in your group? I believe that he already answered that. It was 12 people in addition to him, in addition to Guy. And
there's about 30 of us, but about 3 dozen.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Now,
3 dozen. Sorry, I thought you
Mm-hmm.
said a dozen.
Yeah.
Forgive me, please.
Now, a few of them are studying for their 65, but they're still part of our community and they're part of what we do. So they're not advising yet.
Okay, wow. Are there commonalities among everyone's practice, e.g., are most focusing on individuals, or do they also do retirement business?
There's a big bell curve here, because every advisor likes to work with different people or have different specialties. I don't think there's a specific niche. It's pretty wide ranging. We want to be central around what we want for our clients. So we think in terms of freedom with guardrails. So every advisor is free to serve their niche and have their process, but we have like legal guardrails, like things have to be done. You have to have your ADV go out. You have to have privacy, those things that have to happen. Those are the guardrails, and everything else can kind of be bolted on to make a practice unique.
I have a quick question. Skip, thanks. Sorry, I had to jump and grab a call. I came back on right when you mentioned me. But so we work with a lot of advisors, and I definitely work with some that are flat fee only. They do a mix of things. The one, and you might have covered this, like I said, I had to jump off, but the one challenge that I've heard advisors make is increasing, right? So feeling they have to justify the rate increase, you know, with AUM, as investments rise, you automatically get, if you're charging by AUM, you automatically get that raise, whether the client realizes it or not, right? If you're charging 1% and it's going up, you're going to get 1% of a higher number. So if you're charging, I don't know, $36,000 a year on a flat fee, to provide planning, and then the next year you want to increase it. Do you do that, or how do you have that conversation with clients?
That's between the advisor and the client. It's a great question. And is the client seeing an increase in value for what's happening? Structurally, you send a new agreement and, you know, a new fee schedule. But where is the service level changing? It's tough. I have yet to find a client who wasn't on board with, hey, you're working hard and you deserve a raise too. It's okay to think along those terms. Every one of us is paying more for other things we're doing. We as advisors also deserve to think that our time is valuable. And I think sometimes it's more of an emotional hurdle than a technical, you know, what to say type of thing. So it's hard to answer because every client will want to hear something different. But I'm not sure if this answers your question completely, but I think it starts with how do we feel about our worth and what we're doing? And I'd say, you know, everyone has permission to know what you're worth. Because what we're
Absolutely.
doing does matter a lot.
Absolutely. And I wasn't trying to suggest that you don't deserve it. It was just one of those things. That was the challenge that I've heard from other advisors about it. So thanks.
Yeah, and you're right. The biggest challenge is sometimes our own ability to just
Right.
say, hey, I love working with you. And here's what we've been doing the past several years, and things have gone well. We need to increase our fee for X, Y, and give them specific, you know, cost of things for us goes up. Cost of us to do business goes up. We don't want to take on 20 more clients. We want to serve the same number of clients
Mhm.
and to give that same attention. I would
Right.
imagine that wouldn't go poorly. And if it did, is that client
The
perfect
right
for
client.
us?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Sarah, I am amazed by the questions and the people you bring together. This is a lot of fun.
I'm amazed by these people too. That's why you should all come to immersion. Sorry, Skip.
Oh, you're fine. I was just gonna make a point, just based on experience here. I'm blessed to live in a community that has many outstanding, well-known fee-only financial advisors. We all know each other and we collaborate even though we're not part of the same firm. And I've got agreements with several that if they were to get run over by the beer truck tomorrow, I can fall in and help them, you know, their firm muddle through, you know, the transition that needs to be done. And that's kind of required by the state out here. You have to have a succession or somebody to fall in on that, at least for a period of time. But when you're talking, and some of the same folks I have had those agreements with, as they went to raise fees, because we collaborate as a community, not as, you know, we're solo practices, but we're up as a community. They're very willing to, hey, I just had a conversation with the Johnsons. I'm raising my fee from $7,500 to $8,500 a year or something. I don't think they need to be paying that. Can I hand them off to you or to you? So kudos to you for thinking outside the box and thinking about that. But I think it behooves every one of us to have those relationships with our colleagues in the community, not competitors, they're colleagues in the community, and have those relationships. I'd make a plug for that. And Sue would be a good person because she sees across all RIAs to make some of those connections, or at least keep you in mind.
That's Skip. I appreciate that because you nailed something again. We're here to help each other. We're not competing. Internally, we do a function of that. For some advisors here whose fees a little higher, they're more specialized. They're going to keep their practices small. And this is happening actually right now this week. There's an advisor whose fees $5,000 a year, and they have a friend who just doesn't want to pay their. You know, it's not for them. They're connecting them with another advisor here who's also great, but charges, you know, quite a bit less. He's an up and coming CFP and perfect in his right. So it's just knowing whose practice likes to serve who, and to be okay to say, hey, client, you're great, and I wish I could work with you, but this is someone who could probably serve you better. And I'm still here, and we can still collaborate, and I'm still here with you. But this will be your day-to-day person.
I mean, I've heard this is not the way the industry works. okay, like this, it's like pulling teeth, like I've said to so many people, you should just have like you should think constantly, 'cause I have these AUM people I work with, right? And they're like, people come to them and are like, I want flat fee advice, or I want planning only. I want planning only. I just want to plan. I don't want you to manage my assets. And the advisor's like, I can't help you with that. Dead silence, no referral to anybody. And I'm like, bro, just refer them to any of these. See this list I have here? I know these people, they'll do a good job. Won't do it. The reason is, well, what good is it for me to do something for them when they're never going to give me any business back? They're never going to give me any business back, right?
Yeah.
This is what,
Or
I
they're
love this.
hoping that person eventually comes back to them because they gave up on their search.
Everybody on this call, let's oppose that kind of thinking. I love it. I love this. This is the artist farmers market. I feel like when I'm like composting on Saturday, this is the green market.
I would add,
like a banjo.
I would add one more to your list, Sarah, and that's people who have long wait lists. I can understand if the client agrees they're going to stay on a wait list for a couple of months, that's fine. But at some point, you need to hand them off. If you're not going to be able to get to them, you need to hand them off. And having collaborators out there or colleagues out there, you can feel comfortable handing them off to. So that's a pet peeve of mine.
I'll build on that if you don't mind, Skip, because anyone that we hand off to someone else who's also high integrity, the whole profession gets better. So let's say you're overbooked, you need to hand someone off, they're well taken care of. Now your model you're proving your own business model, even though you're not the one doing it. The profession does get better. And by you proving your own business model, you're helping your future self, should your future self want more clients. There's so many people that are just, taking advantage in this space. And I think the 10% number was thrown out there. I'm not sure we're even 10% of like the advisor. Like if you consider like what is considered an advisor, maybe we should register rep. But we are not going to steal each other's clients. It's impossible. Most of us are just too busy to do it. I'm personally not taking any more clients on. So if I have someone, let's say in my own practice, like, hey, guy, I need help. I'm like, you know what? I'm a little bit overbooked, but this person here is amazing and they're going to do better for you anyway. And they're smarter than me. So it just helps the profession.
Next question, and then we're going to wrap. To what degree have people considered setting a floor and a ceiling on their fee as an AUM overlay? For example, X% of assets with a minimum fee of Y dollars and a maximum of X. Depending upon the level the min and max are set at, this approach addresses the smaller clients since there's a real value of the services provided, but also permits a max fee and enables some growth as AUM increases.
That's not something we're doing just yet. We're still kind of playing for planning, or if an advisor is AUM. When you blend those two, we would have to change our ADV, which we could always do that, but it does complicate us right now. And we're trying to simplify as much as we can. What you're describing though is a very good future model of doing this, meaning in a client with, let's say they've very few in assets, they could pay a monthly fee, but why not just keep the monthly fee? So I don't have a good answer for that. I would say that's kind of dependent on how the advisor wants to be compensated. And I'm not pro or against any particular model as long as the client sees it and knows what they're getting for it. And as long as the client is better off for having known you. That's the big one. And I probably did not answer your question at all. I apologize. But we don't have any like specific floors. I personally have taken on clients with no assets. I made like no money for a while when I was starting off and I was AUM. But I figured, well, their parent knows me now and I got that account. I didn't like that personally, but it worked out for me just over the course of years. It's not the cleanest way to do it. But it was a long-winded non-answer. So I apologize. We don't have a specific floor or max. Well, we have a max on flat fees. We won't go above, I forget what the number is. I have to look at my ADV again. We have to put a max on there. Yeah, we just can't be like, oh, this is 100 grand for this client. At that point, just start a family office or something.
I have seen minimum fees. You just have to be careful because the regulators will come in and sort of, question the value that you're providing, whether the client sees value or not. But you know the amount of work that goes into it, and in order to break even or make any money at all, that you've got the minimum that you have to make on a per client basis. So.
Right. No, I totally respect that.
I want to end the meeting now, but not if anybody else has questions. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Next meetup is going to be a mixer. We're going to be doing some small group work, and also it's going to be open-ended, where we're just going to answer random or questions that everybody has. Please send me your questions about these business models, and I will pose them to the group. Thank you all for being here so much. And please support the transparent advisor movement, support these values in the marketplace, support each other. And most of all, if you're not registered for immersion, this is the type of stuff that goes on there, this kind of like Vulcan mind melding, okay? So I really hope that everybody will consider it. If you have any questions, let me know. And that's it. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Amen. Bye.